Welcome back to Brothers in Boots. My name is Mike.
My name is Jeff.
And today we'll be talking with John. Recently we did John's collection. He's got some notes and feedback for us on it. And then we're going to talk a little bit with John about his style, what he thought of the boots we picked out, his Grail boot, and just kind of what he's looking for in the future and kind of what his plans are coming up. What are we drinking today, Jeff?
This is a repeat. I think I did this one, but you seem to be a big Michter's fan, so I'm doing it again. Some M10 bottled in 2013. Last good year for the Michter's 10, in my opinion.
Down the hatch. Michter's does make a pretty good product. The M10 rye in 24 was something quite different. It's a very cherry first rye, which is not something we'd normally associate with cherry or with cherry. See, cherry first is something we associate with cherry, not something we'd normally associate with rye. It's definitely more of a bourbon, especially kind of leaning into the weeder side of the house. So it was something that was very unique. I don't know if I'd necessarily call it good from that perspective, but it was just a very refreshing change.
They've never told us what their mash bill is, and I admit I haven't cared enough to try very hard to figure it out. But a lot of these ryes that we've got are barely rye. And they only have to be 51% to be called a rye. So it could very well be like 52, 54% rye, in which case it would probably have a whole lot of corn and have a better chance of sharing.
Yep. So with us today, we have John and John's dog. So hi to John's dog.
Hi, John Stone.
Yeah.
And so John, let's go on with your collection. So what'd you like about what we did? What'd you dislike? Any notes about things we got wrong?
Yeah, overarching, you guys did a great job on it and everything. There was only like 4 things that got mixed up. The Alden pair, the Alden Indies, they were actually they're a newer construction. They're just about a year old now, probably. And a lot of the bad stuff, I guess, with Alden can be negated by going along with an in-house one of the individual stores, one of their custom makeups. Like each one of the stores will have their own custom makeups that they have carte blanche to and everything. But so that one, the only thing dead stock about it was the leather. So kudos on Alden, at least for that pair. Other than that, the Rancourts and the Oak Street bootmakers both got mixed up, just so that Oak Street doesn't get their name sullied a little bit or anything. Or
Yep. So to be clear on that, what he's talking about is we attributed the pair we really liked to Rancourt when it was actually Oak Street, and the pair that we didn't like and we had things that we didn't like about it was actually a budget Rancourt pair.
Yeah.
Which is actually extremely funny, because the one that we actually liked more was actually the much cheaper one. So that is ironic.
Well, the one I paid a lot less for anyway. This one actually is, in all fairness, a more expensive boot, brand new. They're like 300 or something like that. I think they're just bringing it back now, actually, after they've been gone for a little while. So I'd have to look at the prices again now. But yeah, Rancourt only did this one time and everything, and they never did this one again anyway. They still have their budget boot line, which is a Dirigo, but I haven't seen that particular boot on there again, or anything in that particular leather.
Yeah, makes sense.
It's distinctive. You said it's really foldable, right?
Oh yeah. No, like I just took him on a plane ride over to Missouri and everything, and I basically brought them along as my secondary pair and everything, because you can basically just, I don't know if my video is caught up, but you can just crush it down basically as 2D as you possibly could, and it just springs right back up. There's one good thing about this temper, or I guess it's a little bit stiffer of a temper for how thin of a leather it is.
Yeah, makes sense.
We are hearing you, but yeah, it did freeze up.
Gotcha.
There you go.
There you go. You're moving again.
That demonstration, you can just press this thing right on down, and it just springs right back.
Yeah.
I mean, for the most part, anyway. The wrinkliness that it is.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, there's going to be wear marks where you wear them. There's no getting rid of that. That's always going to be a thing.
Okay. Yeah, I really like them. They're definitely like a very baggy fit on me, and they definitely look like it now because I have worn them as a baggy fit and everything. But yeah, they're a kick around pair for me.
Hey, nothing wrong with shit kickers. Another thing that we didn't have in the episode, but has come up is a lot of these boots were boots that you've picked up off eBay secondhand or gotten on a budget. We kind of focused on them as if they were fresh sales, and so it's kind of important that a lot of this was thrifted stuff, and not necessarily stuff bought new, which once again there's nothing wrong with, but just like that Oak Street pair there, we're judging it based off what you paid for it, which was the $130, not the $330 or $350, whatever they are brand new.
Gotcha. Yeah, no, pretty much every pair that I had in that collection and everything actually were heavily discounted, either directly from the manufacturer or through eBay, except for the Aldens and all the P&Ws. But even the P&Ws, I got them all on sale actually also. I took advantage of all their sales. But yeah.
The dreaded P&W sale. There's a lot of opinions on that one flying around these days.
I've heard opinions on them and everything. And I definitely kind of agree with it and everything, but I can't resist.
No, and no one should feel bad about taking advantage of the sale. We just wish they would stop offering them and just make prices better all year round, to be entirely honest.
No, I definitely got that too, yeah. But no, yeah, on that, like if you averaged out every pair that I had besides the Aldens and the P&Ws, I have an average price paid of about like $200 per pair.
Great average.
Yeah.
Fantastic average.
Unheard of average these days. We're definitely moving well and truly past that, unless your brand of choice is Thursday.
Yeah. Which they were on sale for $200 actually, even.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. They weren't specified as seconds either, but it was during their sale. And I've noticed with a lot of these like ready to wear, like, or off the shelf kind of companies and everything, whenever you see that they have a sale, it's going to be seconds quality more than likely.
Yeah.
Because it's going to be things that either got like passed off to the back of the room, or like they would open up the box probably and see that it had a minor defect, and instead of like turning them in or anything, they would just get put to the back and put to the back and put to the back.
Yeah.
Until finally they have sales. And
yeah, I think a lot of these seconds for ready to wear brands are also returns. In a lot of cases, a ton of them are probably stuff that's been returned.
Yeah, that's why, like in Wolverine's case, like you'll see like some of their limited edition boots and stuff from like years ago that come on there, like just a single pair and everything. It's like that one's definitely gonna have some problems.
Yeah,
like it just all depends on what the problems are and everything. But yeah, like each one of my pairs of Wolverines all have their own individual works for sure. None of them make them unwearable though, so it's all good.
Some of the defects aren't the easiest to find either. There's a guy, I can't remember his name, and I probably shouldn't even say it if I could, but I remember that he lives in Missouri. Pretty sure he lives in Missouri, and I think he said he owns a farm and he's kind of well-to-do. He's made himself seem like he's got money, but this guy's got this habit of buying boots off of Westco from their second section that are definitely seconds, and he's just turning around and he's selling them as if they're not seconds and making a profit on them.
Oh, really?
For a little while, I was cutting and pasting it all and sending it to Chris at Westco, so he was aware.
Well, joys of flipping boots. It's something that's not going to go away. Well, I don't know. The golden age of boots is kind of come to an end. We've done an episode on it. We might not see boot flipping be as big of a thing as it's been in recent years. Here come the next year or two. Maybe like your Clinches, your John Lofgrens, there might still be some kind of market for that. Jack and Bros, which is the ready-to-wear brand of White Cloud, you might see stuff like that maybe being flipped still, but the majority of it is probably going to be, stepping by the wayside. That being said, also, most people flipping boots tend to lose money on the sales. Very rarely do they make money on the sales.
Yeah, there's certainly changes going on, and that's definitely where we're headed. I used to flip a lot of boots. None of them were P&Ws. None of them were seconds being sold as firsts. But I would find stuff that was older, that was made better than it is today, where the person wasn't smart enough to be able to condition them and clean them up and get rid of scratches and scuffs. And so they sell them for really low, but I'm able to recognize it. So I buy it and I put a bunch of elbow grease into it. And I mean, I've made between 50 and $150 per pair. And I've done that well over a dozen times, probably over 3 dozen times. But I think I've only done it once in the last year. And that's a statement there, because that's where we're headed. I mean, people are wanting too much for them when they sell them, and then they're not being able to grab as much for them when they resell them. Yeah, the market for making a profit's kind of going away. People are losing money and being thankful that they got any of the money back out of it.
Yeah. But,
Yeah, I've lost money on pretty much anything I've ever tried to sell in my life. So
yeah, well, I mean,
I got some
what
ready
Jeff's
to
talking
sell, but,
about is a little bit more around the lines of like getting stuff on like shop.goodwill or like your local thrift store or flea market that you can clean up, that you can hopefully get for 30 to $75 or less.
Oh, yeah.
In new boots, besides like the one example he gave, very few people are flipping brand new boots, except for the very exotic from Asia stuff. Like I said, Lofgrens usually flip pretty well. Clinch usually flips pretty well. Anything from White Cloud, which is like Jack and Bros, his actual White Cloud line. I'm sure for the couple people that are interested in doing it, if someone bought a pair of creosotes that they just decided they didn't like and flipped them, they could probably get their money out of them pretty easily and maybe even make a couple bucks.
Yeah, just for people to avoid that weight.
Mm-hmm. Correct.
I'm of two minds on it. On the one hand, when a pair of boots costs that much money, it seems like you should be able to sell it quite easily, and because of the amount of money that's in it. The other side of it for me, and the one that really holds the most water, is you're going to spend that much money on an expensive boot. Why not make sure it fits right instead of guessing? I'm used to not being normal, so
yeah, people are weird when it comes to that. For the Clinch and the Lofgren stuff, I can definitely understand. But I mean, there was a pair of the last year's limited edition Brian the Bootmaker engineers that had the brown shinky and that special Art Deco outsole thing that he's got, that someone bought, and just like 2 months before this year's Thunderdome, basically hadn't wore them in the 18 months since he got them, and like put them on for the first time, decided they didn't fit, was going to wear them for the Thunderdome this year, and flipped them for basically like $100 more than he paid for them. So it's kind of more shit like that. I'm sure that's maybe happened a time or two with creosote as well, because here's the problem. Like when we get into made measure footwear, number one, you should never be flipping it, just because it's meant for your foot specifically. It's not a stock size, right? When we talk about Brian, we talk about Gabbard, the White Cloud line specifically, that's all made to measure stuff. You selling it to someone else is kind of a disservice to begin with. But on top of it, every 10 pounds of weight you go either direction affects your fit. And when you start talking about White Clouds, 2.5-year weight, you start talking about, Texas Traditions, it's a 6-year weight. You start talking about Lisa Sorrell, who you have to fight for a spot, a very expensive spot. And, she don't usually go more than 2 years out on her waiting list. But her spots are also $10,000 starting. You get into this kind of dichotomy of you could gain 40 or 60 pounds in that amount of time and end up with a pair that doesn't fit at all. So a lot of these guys will remeasure you like right before it's time to build, but then you can't just like have it under the bed for 18 months like that Brian the Bootmaker 10th anniversary edition, where you just don't touch it for 1.5 years after it's built. There's nothing the Bootmaker can do to do that. And that's not their responsibility either at that point. Because at least if you're wearing them as you're gaining the weight, they'll stretch and move with you, and they'll break in at the right spots. And, as long as you just don't, like balloon, it's not really a big deal, but I mean, I guess it could happen too. Never say never, but you know, you usually have a little bit of leeway. And with the lace up model, you could probably make it work, right? But obviously a pull on, you couldn't at that point.
Of these boots in your collection, how many of them do you think will go up for sale in the next year, if any?
Probably about 4 or 5 of them I have lined up to sell, but like 2 of them, 3 of them probably won't sell. I highly doubt.
No.
Like those Woolrich, I highly doubt anybody buys those.
Yeah,
like unless I put them on for like $5.
Yeah.
Cost plus shipping. 0 plus shipping. Shipping only.
Yeah.
Please take them.
It makes sense. You know, some of it is what it is. I mean, everyone's got a boot journey. You know, in my case, my first a couple pairs, which Nick's botched pretty bad, they ended up taking back, like giving me like 80% of my money back on them after we figured out all the mistakes that were made in the measuring process. None by me, all by the person reading it. And I called out multiple times the problems. I even paid for 2 extra fit boots just to try to figure out. It's like, these are just blatantly too long. There's no reason there should be 1 3/8 in front of my toe. Oh, trust the process. It's fine. Blah, blah, blah. Hate that term. I've heard every P&W company use it, and I hate when they say just trust the process, because trust the process 9 times out of 10 means that someone let something slip through the cracks and they're hoping it just works out.
That'd be true.
I just wasn't very confident with my own tracing and everything, or I had my niece do it for me and everything, but my confidence level wasn't very high with the fact that she's never done anything like that before and everything like that. I definitely took a gamble on my first pair, buying without the fit sheet or anything actually even going through yet or anything. I got those the fire commanders, and I basically only got them. Also, I don't do any firefighting or anything like that. I basically got them for a pretty dumb reason. They're an apocalypse boot. They're gonna kind of just sit around and in case anything ever happens to where I'm gonna have to like be out in the woods or something like that, or off on the run or something like that for months and months at a time or something, then those are the thing that I think will hold up the best.
No, it makes sense. And you know, if you're a D width, it's a little easier to deal with a lot of this. There's a little bit more that plays kind of in your favors, and it's not a bad thing to be hesitant with the tracings, because there's 3 things to tracings. 1, they have to be done right in the first place. Number 2, the person interpreting them is going to give them a little bit of leeway left and right of like, oh, maybe we need to go bigger here. I don't like exactly what I'm seeing on the paper there, so I'm going to, add a little here. And they have to really use the art of interpretations versus the science of interpretation to kind of figure that out and work through those pieces and make a very educated guess. And every maker does this if they don't do the measurements themselves. It's not like unique just specifically to any of the P&Ws or anything. Like even guys like Creosote or Flora, if you're not there in person, they have to really kind of take a lot of this with a grain of salt and look at what they see. But the flip side of that is we give a lot of credence to these thing called ball, waist, heel, ankle, 6-inch, blah, blah, blah. And as Jeff learned in the custom last he's working through right now, you have to actually find where these bones are. Like the ball actually means a specific position on the foot. It's not just like where it is on the picture. And when we get into short heel, long heel, and waist, these are measurements that like are targeting very specific bones on your foot.
At least one of those measurements was extremely hard to find. I had a lot of trouble. I mean, I went back and forth with Mike on video, and we were watching what he did with Gabbard, and no, you just can't find it. Like, what the fuck is this thing? But it is the one that nobody usually takes. I think that's kind of why they probably don't take it very often. I think they realize how hard it is to find.
Yeah, it's looking for a specific gap right before the cuboid bone. But I mean, just the ball is a good example. A lot of people just take a ball where it's out in the picture, but it really needs to go around the bone just behind your pinky toe, the first joint of the metatarsal, and around the middle of the actual ball of your big toe. And for some people, it's a straight line like this. For some people like me, it slants like this. For some people, it's kind of like interior in a bit more. If you've got like a longer second toe, that pinky toe is going to be almost as far forward as the ball. So it really just depends. There's a lot of genetics that go into it, but that's the one thing that none of the fit sheet instructions really give people is like what bones to look for, which would probably make it far too complicated, but it's one of those realities, right?
Were there,
Yeah,
what were the, go ahead.
no, I was gonna say, yeah, I have short toes, and that kind of makes sizing kind of weird for me in a lot of different lasts for sure. I mean, I can fit into pretty much anything, but like it all just depends on my level of comfort with how much my toes are being scrunched in.
Yeah.
I really probably could benefit from going up probably in wider sizes than P&W boots, I'll say, but like the trick with them is just trying to find my arch length for sure.
Well,
My
yeah, and lasts
Go for
are
it.
supposed to be sized off what's called the golden section, which is based on where your ball's at. Like, none of these lasts are really meant to be measured heel to toe. And like, for example, Frank's, when they measure you in the store, they're not really measuring you heel to toe, and kind of like the way you're doing it online. They're looking to put the ball in a very specific spot on the foot in the last itself, which is just past as the vamp is opening up. And like from an impression after like 6 months of wear, you can see exactly where it's supposed to be. And in person, that's very easy to do. Remote, it's quite a bit more difficult because honestly, the length in front of your toes doesn't matter as much as getting that golden section in the right spot. Because cordwainers, so for example, someone like Dennis from Custom Craft, Gabbard from Creosote, Marcel, Mr. Stan over in Pennsylvania, they're going to put almost an inch in front of your toes, and it's going to be a lot more in front of your toes because it doesn't really matter. They're putting your ball in a specific spot in the last, which is really honestly basing your entire length off arch length. Which even like the 55 in itself is really meant to be measured off that. But how do you get someone to get their correct arch length on paper? It's very difficult.
Yeah, I can see. Yeah.
For fitment of boots, you're in better shape with shorter toes.
Mm-hmm.
I
Gotcha.
guess there's a pro and con there as far as what to wish for. My toes are long, and it's great for being able to pick up shit. My ex-wife used to say I had finger toes, and it was very convenient, I have to admit. But because, like Mike said, your fitment should be on the ball and the arch. Your toes being shorter is an advantage because you're not as close to the front of hitting. And if you've got longer toes, then your chances increase of having to have them like maybe add a piece of leather to the front of the last to make the toe box longer without changing the ball and the arch fitment.
Yep.
A further custom step.
Which not everyone will do. It's for a lot of the more manufacturing based guys who are really more factories than custom boot makers. It really screws with the life of the last to tack a bunch of stuff to the toe.
But they see that on the sheet when you send in the fit sheet, especially if you've marked like where the tape landed on either side of your foot, and they can see how long your toes are.
Yep.
What else did we miss? Anything else from your collection? I had written them down, but I only did it as a wordy cut and paste from what you had sent me. So
That was the only major things, really.
All right, so let's talk about the Riker that you want next from Frank. So you called out to us that your next boot is a Riker. Talked about some multiple combinations. Let's go down that. So what is your next pair? You mentioned something about it potentially being late this year, early next year. What are you thinking?
I'm gonna be ordering probably within the next like month or two. It's gonna be a summer boot. I don't really have like any high arch footwear that I can wear during the summer or anything. So it's definitely going to be a shorter Riker, the wedge, but more than likely something like a Sierra, something like that. I definitely want a little more lug or something, at least some lugs, like just because I do some hiking and everything. So just the smooth bottom definitely won't cut it.
Oh yeah.
And I just have
Most of your
so
most of your boots were wedges, so
I have
you're
many of them.
wanting to
Yeah.
stay with the wedge, but at the same time have some thread.
Mm,
The
Yep.
thread, I meant tread.
tread. Yeah.
So yeah,
Right.
do that glue on thing where you do a wedge and then glue another sole onto the bottom of it. Which is
Yeah,
essentially
definitely.
2 outsoles.
Yeah, so I think there's the Sierra, there's the Elvis, I think there's one other one. I think it's like the Tread Right or something like that, but it's got like a little nubbin on the toe you'd have to cut off.
And then I saw recently that he did a monkey Riker, so I'm kind of interested in maybe doing that. Either a laced tattoo or monkey for the Riker for sure, unless the Mocto is out by then, and then I might go that route also. It all depends. I'm kind of thinking that might be my dome pair for next year if I can get the right leather and everything for it.
That makes sense. I wouldn't expect the mock toe in another month or two. That's probably still.
Well,
You think
they've
it
been
might be right?
working on that. They put that semi LTT,
Yeah, the
they
Wilson.
call it,
Yeah.
out.
I am
So
didn't
that
want
kind of
to because that was one of the only things that I had from Wesco that I wanted was the semi-laced toe, which I still might get one from Wesco also, but with Wesco's like reputation here recently and a lot of their wait times and everything, I don't know.
It's tough.
Yeah.
the wait time is ridiculous, and they've got no arch. So
Yeah, that too.
I think those 2 reasons are good enough.
Yeah, I'm needing the arch more and more also, so it's as
Yeah.
I get older.
It makes sense. I mean, I have my Wescos have a full length Delta arch in them, so
Gotcha.
That's
I
how I
am
make mine
interested in
work.
trying them also. I might try and throw some of them in some of my cheaper boots.
yeah. Well, I mean, what I would suggest doing is getting a pair of Delta arches, just one, and seeing if you can remake them yourself. I've looked at it. It doesn't seem too terrible. I might be making a couple myself here before too long. See how it goes. The hardest thing is getting that arch piece out and finding a reliable way to get that arch piece correctly shaped. That's not simple and easy to do because you got to start with a 11 ounce piece, or sorry, 11 iron piece of leather to make that piece. And I have the material sitting around to do it, but it is a time consuming process. I just got to figure out an easy, repeatable way to consistently make them the same shape.
I'm certainly going to be doing the double outsole when I get around to it. I'm definitely going to be doing a Rainier. It's definitely going to be a wedge. It's definitely going to have that second outsole, probably the Sierra, put on underneath it. Want to try the cushion, even though it's kind of more rigid in your walking. But I want to try out the cushion again. It's been a while since I've done a wedge. I never liked wedges, but maybe this will change my mind. Part of what I hated was the color, so I can get black one now. That'll help.
Yeah.
But I mean, putting that second outsole on the outside will also make it so that I can do the resoles myself.
That's true too.
Oh, I can heat up the glue and rip off that Sierra and slap on another one right behind it.
Yep. Or hell, an Harbor Freight belt sander, you could just take the whole thing off without even having to heat it up and peel it off. Just done.
It's true too. So a monkey Rainier with a double outsole.
Or a mock toe if it's
and
available.
Riker. Monkey Rainier Riker. No, you can't do that. You can't do a monkey and a Riker. You gotta make a choice.
I saw him there's a picture on Instagram of at least one pair that he did. I think it was in Kudu actually.
You could do a lace-to-toe Riker.
So I wonder if they could
There's
just,
I've seen lace-to-toe Rikers like 3 or 4 times.
I wonder if they could just tack an extra eyelet on. Let's take a look, see here.
There's definitely one on Instagram.
Yeah, I'm looking right now. See if I can find it.
It's
Well,
like a
if it was a monkey, it would have to be a monkey with all the patches deleted.
It's dress patch.
I've never seen it. Doesn't mean it doesn't exist. I'm surprised it got past me. I'll have to look harder for it. Or you can bring it to my attention if you think about it. That would be hard.
Yeah, I'm not seeing it off quick glance. But it doesn't mean it's not one of the ones that's got a moving picture either.
Yeah, I think it was.
I've definitely seen a lace-to-toe Riker. I've seen it at least 3 times now.
And that's what I was.
Yeah. They look nice. They look nice. Definitely work. What colors are you thinking? You mentioned turquoise, right?
Yeah, I was thinking about it, but I really started thinking about that sapphire Pueblo from Badalassi. But I also, at the same time, kind of want to hold off and get a Badalassi waxy if there's ever one of them coming through or anything. But yeah, more than likely, if I had to decide right now, it would be the Sailor Blue Canvas, the Sapphire Pueblo, and a lace-to-toe Riker.
That'd be a good combo. It's funny because you're mentioning canvases and leathers that I brought in, because the Sailor Blue was brought in for my turquoise Riker, I don't know, about a year ago now, and then the Badalassis, just because we've mentioned Badalassi enough times. Because I have some sapphire sitting there, and well, I did have some Astencia, which is the turquoise, but Tony went ahead and used it, so there still is a little bit of sapphire left, and then they went ahead and brought it in. I'm a little disappointed in the navy. The navy came out far too dark. I've seen other Pueblo navy, and it's way, way lighter. I don't know why theirs turned out so dark.
Yeah, I'm thinking I want, like, I'm trying to limit myself on colors and everything, just to try and get like a basic outline of all the builds that I kind of want to have done for me anyway over the next like few years and everything, and trying to limit myself to like 2 blues and 1 turquoise. So I already have the I don't know whether to include the Aldens in this, but yeah. Anyway, yeah. So basically, I'm trying. I never even looked at any of the other tanneries outside of the USA until like just a couple months ago. So I've been kind of doing a crash course here recently with the tannery discussion you guys had on the European tanneries and the Japanese tanneries and everything like that.
I do good work. Here is my current dome boots. These are Consaria Walper Black Burrow Buttero, and like I said, they're working out pretty nice so far.
The only butter I could like find from any like these any of these distributors and everything right now, though, is just the straight up butter. Like that's a ghost butter, right? Or
yeah, it's the Black Burrow. It's the Black Ghost. Yeah, they only ran it the one time. Walper lost their shorts on it. I don't even think they broke even on it with the extra processes that went into it, and then the fact that most of the distributors like Tannery Row sold it on sale at a discount because most people didn't know what they were looking at and they didn't do a good job marketing it. So they sold the majority of it like 30% off. So like nobody won on that at all. So I highly doubt they ordered again. Plus the white colors are just atrocious. If you've seen anything made out of the white ones, they don't look good.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I want one white leather, and I haven't been able to find one yet that I kind of like as much as except for the elk. There is a CF Steda elk that's kind of a whitish color and everything, and that's probably the closest that I've found so far to a white. Yeah.
I've found I haven't told Jeff about it yet, but I've found a true white. It's a kangaroo. They do make a kangaroo color called bone. I have a kangaroo hat band made in it, and it's an actual true white in bone that you can get. I don't
Yeah, some naturals I've seen actually are pretty close to white.
Oh,
Yeah.
here, let me put a picture in Discord for you guys. I mean, this one's straight white. Like it's sneaker white, which is really what Jeff's looking for. I just don't know if it can be gotten in
Okay.
big enough pieces to make a boot out of or not. I'll have to figure out
I was
where
kind of thinking that
Huey
the
gets it
answer
from.
might reside in kangaroo, because I keep on thinking of all the soccer cleats that I had growing up playing soccer.
Kangaroo.
And I mean, some of them be black and some of them be white, but they were usually kangaroo. So,
Yeah, you guys got me looking at kangaroo actually, since you guys suggested that as well. Yeah. Is the only kangaroo that you guys have found suitable for boots anyway? Is that the Merriam ones, or is the
So far, yeah.
the Birdsall?
Yeah, no, most of the stuff people
Have
make
you heard
boots
of-
out of is Merriam.
Gotcha.
So
Have you heard of the Birdsall
mhm.
or Birdsall?
Yep.
Yeah. Or is that just too thin, or like?
So all kangaroo is thin, but Burzall is where Lisa gets her decorative kangaroo for like cowboy boot uppers, and it comes in at like 0.7 millimeter. It's not thick at all. So and the thickest I've seen kangaroo is like 1.2 millimeter, and that's pretty thick kangaroo. And that's what most of the Merriam is running, is like 1 to 1.5. Yeah. Anyway, I put a picture in chat. Those middle two braids, Jeff, those are it. And just for everyone here to kind
they
of
look great.
see. Yeah, these are
They're definitely white, but they're
Yeah.
not bright. I mean, that's
Yeah. It's this bone color right here. This is the hat bands that Huey makes. So
Yeah, I could only catch a glimpse of it for a second. It'll take away the. thing if I'm trying to
no,
look at.
not a problem. And the viewers got to see it. So
it's definitely something that I've been trying to work on for a while. I can't remember whether it's been discussed in BiB or not, but I wore so many white sneakers for so long, and it seems like, I don't know, half of the footwear out there is white because people wear so many white sneakers because it's the default for sneakers. So in my mind, I keep thinking logically, there has to be a way of getting a white boot that's going to look cool and maybe less bootish. Maybe at first glance would look more like a pair of sneakers to some people, so that it could be worn in different situations. I just haven't found it yet. So that maybe that's the answer. Maybe that's it.
Yep. I think it'd be close. Probably one of the closest things you'd find.
One day, maybe. I mean, I think that the right monkey boot in that white kangaroo could look pretty damn cool.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, if you think about it, so this is one of the prototype monkeys, right? And if you look from above, it looks like a high top sneaker. Like if you didn't see the fact that it's got a giant heel on it, like it looks like a high top sneaker from above.
That's what I'm enjoying about the monkeys. Yeah, actually. Yeah, overall. I mean, those definitely look a lot more like it because it doesn't have the stitching out over front and everything. But that's kind of hardly even noticeable, really, for the most part.
Yeah, well, it's not double vamp either. So this prototype pattern is the original. So like in your monkeys that stitch above like not only is there a double vamp piece here, but the quarters we call them uppers. Quarters is their kind of shoemaking term, but the quarters that run all the way up here, that piece crosses over the top of it plus the patch, right? So there'd be 3 pieces of leather there. This vamp piece is quite a bit different that they did in this prototype. It's not anywhere near the same. So that's not anything they offer to anybody anymore. There's only a couple of those made. I think there's a black pair sitting at Frank's that may or not been sold at some point, which is the original prototype that was made for Brandon. Then the pair that Jeff has, the pair that I have, and I don't know if they've made any other prototype monkeys besides that.
That is all that I can think of. There might be a fourth one somewhere.
If there is, it's most likely one of the shop workers there at Frank's.
It was just really hard to make.
Yeah, so
really.
Here I can show you specifically the hardest part. So right here, if you look here, you see how the stitching gets completely different here going up and down than it does left to right. The reason is they have to stitch all of this here by hand, and it stitches all the way down through the bottom on the outsole. and they have to, as they flatten and cut this, not screw that up and break those. And then this can never be rebuilt. So this style setup, these uppers can't be reused. There's no way to reuse them. So like once you build one in like this, there's just nothing that they can do. I mean, maybe like a post bed stitcher or a special stitching machine would solve some of these problems, but once again, the lace to toe monkey became their simpler solution without reinventing the wheel too much. And it's mostly the same thing. If you don't go with contrasting stitching, no one's really going to notice the stitching in front of the eyelets anyway.
Yeah, they couldn't get that stitching to look good. It was looking terrible, and unfortunately nowadays, half of the people would have just bitched about it, and they would have lost their shirt trying to remake boots on it. So they just couldn't do it.
Yeah, and the fact that it can't be rebuilt either is another big, negative point, because it'd be one of the very few models that can't be rebuilt. It'd literally be one of two. So,
have you guys seen Schmidt's his lace to toe? It's kind of like a monkey, but yeah. I think that's probably what I'm going to go with him.
Yeah.
And then I'm thinking about
he's a great guy.
Yeah,
he does great work.
He does good work. I say his stuff is a little more like hiker themed, like kind of Korean leather hiker boot themed. So not really my style personally, but I mean, all of his stuff looks good.
I'm thinking about taking his glass and everything, so I think that's the style I'm going to go for with that. And then if I end up buying one from him personally also, then that's probably what I would go with.
Yeah.
That class thing, I definitely like to talk about that more, but that was kind of supposed to be the second conversation.
Yeah, we'll leave it for that. We've got enough time on this one. We've still got a little bit to talk about, so we'll circle back to that. So we talked about what's next, so that's cool. I mean, one thing I will say, and this is just me talking, but if it's not like a work boot, kind of like cap toe-ish style, I would probably stay away from the Bison. I would stick more towards like your Badalasses, your Walpers, your Kudus. The Bisons just they don't do the monkey style well, and with as loose as some of the pieces are, you're not going to get like any of the benefits out of it. That soft tempers is really not quite meant for that style.
I guess I'd agree. I don't think I agree necessarily because of softness. For me, I feel the same way just because of looks. Somehow in my own head, which can be a dangerous, confusing, horrible place, a monkey needs to be smooth. Just something in my head tells me a monkey has to be smooth. So anything textured doesn't have a chance for me. So, but lots of people have done bison monkeys, and lots of people have loved them. I guess I've heard of one person that had a bit of a complaint about a bison monkey, but pretty good odds.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think they've made a ton of them either, but the biggest thing with a monkey is you're fighting breaking in laces more than anything else. So combining a super soft temper like bison with fighting a large lace break-in, you'd better off getting something with a little thicker temper that'll fight the laces a little bit more and not want to kind of get wonky and sideways on you. Because once again, bison monkey, the break-in's going to be all about how tight you pull your laces. So...
And bison doesn't always seem to break in the same places in the same ways. So when you've got that big of a patch on both sides on top of the leather underneath that's bison, those two leathers might fight each other and not break in the same way. I don't know whether that might be a permanent problem or just make break-in harder, but I could see at least one of those two being a factor. Because it is softer, but it's also stronger.
Yeah, per tensile strength per thickness, yeah, it's about twice that of cow. Like I said, the biggest issue that I would see is, like for example, you could tell in mine like exactly where my instep's at. Guess what? It's right here at this big old hump, right? So like where I pull my laces to kind of keep this looking decent, this Black Burrow Buttero is very thick and chunky. But like Bison, I could see myself stretching these eyelets and kind of getting like a deformed face on it, just because Bison does kind of break in odd ways. And when you've got a bunch of thickness lined up like that together, I've noticed a lot of the like heavily layered up Seidel kind of do some kind of weirdness with that too. That's, I don't know. Like I said, I would, for a monkey tripling up on layers, I would choose something thinner with a stiffer temper. That's a lot of it. It's just not the right leather for that kind of boot.
Do you have a boot in the dome? You doing dome?
What, me?
Thunderdome?
Yeah,
yes.
he's doing the russet and cinnamon waxed.
Yeah.
How's it looking so far?
Oh, they're looking good. I mean, they actually started off a lot lighter than even whenever I actually entered them into the contest, because I got them basically just a month after the contest started last year. So I had to run other stuff that this was initially supposed to be last year, what I ran. So it's kind of just been sitting on a shelf, and I didn't realize that it was going to like darken up as much as it did, just sitting on the shelf and everything.
Well, that russet comes pale, like super duper pale.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So like it darkened up a little bit before I ever even wore it, but it's starting to darken up a little bit more even now. I wish I had some better lighting and everything so you could kind of see it. But you can kind of see the gradient, like how it starts dark here, and like where it's being hidden by the LT and everything. It's a lot lighter. I don't know if it's going to come across.
No, I know you can see it.
It's coming. I see it. Yeah. It's a lot lighter at the top of that vamp.
Yeah, that russet's super pale, brand new. I remember my milled russet from Nick's that I sold recently, and it when I first got it, I was like, this is kind of almost ugly. So a lot of people with that russet, what they'll do is they'll go set it out in the sun on a nice sunny day for like 4 hours, and it comes in a much more honey color, because a lot of that darkening is just UV exposure.
Mm. Yeah, I'm loving them though. Yeah. And I'm a fan of the lighter leather though, for sure. Like, so that doesn't bother me at all. I was kind of actually bummed whenever I started looking at the photos back whenever I first got them, and then was starting to take the pictures for the dome and everything. I was like, oh man, they were already dark and definitely like 2 shades.
I personally don't do much in the middle. I wear a lot of dark. I own a lot of black, and so I mean that's as dark as you're going to get. So I do like dark, but when I'm not doing black, I usually, almost always pick a very, very light color because of, basically, like you said, it's all this leather is going to get darker, and depending on the products that you use, you can encourage it to get even darker. So I always think that it's best to start with light because I think it's the best canvas.
Yep. Always 2 shades lighter than the color you want it to be.
Yep, that's where I've gotten to at this point in my boot journey for sure. Is everything almost. I look at mostly light leathers, light colors, because I just know that it's gonna be more of a journey with it. I get to see more of the If it starts off too dark, then it's just gonna go black like almost immediately.
Yeah, and the darker colors don't get near as good quality control either. It's always noticeable. There's a reason bespoke shoemakers never buy black leather. They always dye natural leather black. So
well, if back onto the Battle Lassie, if Buttero is the only thing that is available, I was actually thinking about doing a Buttero Harlequin and everything. What you guys have been talking about and everything.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, Buttero is a real unique leather. I didn't like it as much as the Battle Lassie for the first like 50 to 60 hours of break-in. But honestly, I'm kind of at the point now, I think I might like it a little bit more than the Pueblo. Like, it breaks in real nice once you get past that initial kind of hump stage. Now, this is going to be a little different because, this is got a custom like oil finish on it. Yeah. But like you see, it kind of gets the break lines right here from the stiffness of the temper, which you only see this in real thick leathers. But it's like Battle Lassie gets that so much worse. And those smooth out over time. Obviously, this one shows up real shiny in the light, too, because of that black oil finish that's dyed to it. one thing I did find out, do not get alcohol on your hands. You touch the side of this and that green does come off on your hands. I found that out the hard way. A little bit of hand sanitizer at the end was at the bowling alley or something, and I took these off to put bowling shoes on. I looked down at my hand, and from here to here is completely green on just the one hand. And it's like, what the fuck? And you can't see wherever it came off on the boots. I have no fucking clue. But on this right boot right here, somewhere I touched, that green came off on my hands. So I do know that it is some kind of alcohol-based oil finish that they do this black with. It's not like a hard wax or something you can rub off.
Good to know. I like the Battle Lassies. I like that we're starting to see more of those. And I love the amount of colors that they have.
Oh, yeah. It's like 19 in Pueblo and 16 in Waxy. The Waxies are nice. One thing I will say about that, John, is you did mention the Waxies earlier. I had the steel on Waxy. The Waxies are a smidge thinner. And they do hide scratches really well, and they're good in the rain. But they definitely get a lot harder crease lines in the Pueblo, and I think the Pueblo actually hides scratches a smidge better. The only downside of the Pueblo is it does, every time you get wet, get slightly darker, but there seems to be a cap on how dark it gets. So like my sapphires are quite, you know what, let me just grab them real quick. You guys chat for a second.
What do you have in mind? Do you have anything in mind past the Riker? What would be something else you're toying with? And is it more a style or is it more a leather?
A lot of what I started off in collecting boots for anyway was just experiencing different leathers and everything, just because my family's planning on getting into raising cattle and stuff like that. So I started like looking into end products that leather and all that kind of stuff, just different end products that cattle's used for. That interests me, like, so that I could come up with a side venture and everything. And so the majority of the different boots and everything that I want, it's all just going to be experimenting with different leathers, just to experiment the different leathers to see what kind of things that I like and what I don't like and all that kind of stuff. So I have a list of like probably nearly 20 tanneries here and like 9 different hide types and all sorts of stuff that I want to try. So it's all just dependent upon when I have the money to buy a boot. I can piece together something that I definitely would like to build out of it and everything. So it's, I guess the next one after that.
Is that like saying I'm planning on buying 20 pairs of boots? Or is that like saying I'm planning on buying some wallets and some belts? And
Yeah. Mostly it's going to be boots. I have probably about like 25 builds that I have planned out. And no, I didn't even put in the makers. About like 8 makers. Yeah, I think total.
Yep.
Yeah.
Anyway, so here is my sapphires that have been wet a number of times. You can see they are quite a bit darker than the sapphire starts, and they're probably about, I think, where most people want the sapphires to be. I know some people were a little disappointed and thought it was maybe the aqua. It wasn't, but this is where sapphire gets after you've got over 1,000 hours of wear and you've gotten wet all the way up to your ankles more than once. These are the kind of the creases that I've talked about that you do get a little bit in the Pueblo because they stick out just a little bit more due to that. But I mean, overall, sorry, it is quite dirty right there. I was in the mud or what there, but yeah. So I probably should brush them real quick. And you see, I've got some little couple dents and dings in them from the data center. The data center loves to do that, but for the most part, the majority of the scratches on them are quite hidden. So
yeah, oh, that's good.
But yeah, no, I said
definitely a lot more than I was expecting. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I mean they're definitely a nice even shade now. It's pretty good. Like I said, I mean there's, I don't know what the fuck did I walk in? Oh, because I got something on the bottom of it. Try to keep the bottoms clean since I wear the shit in the house. That might be some of the cord sticking through me. That's what it is. So, but yeah, that's one of the things I really like about Dr. Souls, and I'm so glad that Frank's is stocking them now, is this would be completely fucking annihilated already. But because these pads right here are here and they raise up just a higher, you don't get near as much damage to the threads, which is so cool. Now you can tell that these are definitely way worn down because look how smooth they are. They're not supposed to be smooth like that. They're supposed to look more like this, where they've got a bunch of like grippiness and gritty and texture to it. So that's what they start as. This is what they look like at like 1,000 hours, where there's like none of that left at all, and I can almost make squeaky noises by running my fingers over it. So
I think if I was connected to a farm, I'd be trying to do everything I could to end up with a pair of boots that was showing my brand, a cattle brand, whatever that ends up being.
Oh yeah, no, that'd be awesome. Yeah.
I don't even know if it comes out, but I do know that usually that type of thing is cut out. It's the type of thing that wouldn't make it till the end. So you'd have to have some involvement in the process to like say, you know, don't cut it out of this one hide and send it to Wickett and Craig or something.
Mm-hmm. No, that's eventually where I would like to go with it, is to get in touch with one of the tanneries or something and do like a small batch run of my hides and everything through one of them and everything, you know. And be able to offer it as like a small limited production of some sort. If I'm doing my own builds at that time, then it'll be my stuff. Or
yeah, I mean it'd be cool. Like it'd be tough. I don't think you could get Horween to do it. But it might be something that's possible through Rickett or Craig.
Gotcha.
Probably not SB Foot either. It'd probably have to be Wickett and Craig. I don't know if any of the European tanneries would take hides from overseas like that. Be an interesting.
I know Horween did it once with White Oak Pastures, but that's like a larger operation and everything. So he's doing more than that amount.
Yeah,
they have that one. They have that one Thursday booth, the Indigo Chrome XL or whatever, that's like an exclusive with them, which is the only Thursday booth that I actually did want initially before the sale and everything. Yeah. Just because it is exclusive color and all that kind of stuff. Like,
yeah, it's interesting too, because this was a discussion that kind of came up the other day. You know, when you see the stuff come into a lot of these tanneries, you know, they come in pre-blued already, which means the chrome tan process has started. I don't think, now this is speculation on my part, but I don't think anybody like Horween does. I mean, obviously Wickett and Craig doesn't, they only do veg tan, but I don't think anyone actually does their own chrome tanning anymore. So that might be just more working with the meat processor, because I'm betting a lot of that stuff is probably.
So Horween doesn't even do their own chrome tanning anymore?
They do the veg retanning. You think about it, you need completely.
What about whenever they do What about when they do a chrome retan, like over a veg base, when like with the reverse Chrome XL for the horse and everything?
Maybe they do a little bit of it on site, but think about it. You can't mix your chrome tanning equipment and your veg tan equipment. You can't mix those chemicals together. And like I said, they come to Horween on pallets blued already, which means they've been chrome tan. So maybe they send it out to somebody. Maybe they have a small, segmented bit of equipment for that. But most makers get it blued.
Veg was always the second.
So veg. So he's right. There is one. They have one specific horse model that they do a chrome retan on it to soften it. That is an actual veg start. But like
it starts out in the pits and everything. So they do a chrome retan.
Yeah, it starts out the same way.
And then technically, like a chrome pack would be a chrome retan also, but it's a chrome base as well.
Yeah, I haven't done that in a long time though either. And Chrome Pack's always been super small runs. So if they have the equipment on site to do it, it's a very small amount that would do very, very little. Or they would get it to a certain point, ship it to be chrome tanned, ship it back. Because like I said, the majority of these tanneries get their chrome tan pre-tanned from the meat processors, which makes sense because otherwise you'd have to salt pack all the hides. The tanneries would have to waste a bunch of time cleaning all the salt off, getting it prepared for the chrome retan. Or sorry, the initial chrome tanning altogether.
Seidel has got to be doing their own chrome tanning. Even if it comes there chrome tan, they got to be doing their own chrome tan.
And Seidel might.
You got some but also.
Yes, well, SV Foot doesn't actually use their veg tan vats anymore. They do some very small runs of the old pits where they do the veg tanning in, but they're all chrome tan, so their equipment is set up for chrome tanning already.
Yeah.
But like I said, remember the longest thing that goes through Horween is shell. That's a 6-month process, and that's all 100% veg. So the majority of their machines are going to be dedicated to, veg tanning, not chrome tanning. And Seidel, keep in mind, Seidel's in Milwaukee. They've got a little bit bigger facility than Horween does. They're not in the middle of downtown Chicago, so it's probably easier to have both.
You're right. They're in the middle of downtown Milwaukee instead.
No. So
I can't wait to go visit that place. I used to make pilgrimages to Milwaukee, but it's been years.
Yeah, I definitely want to go take some tannery tours, that's for sure.
So you're not too far from Wicket and Craig. That's kind of in your guys' neck of the woods. It's not terribly far. I mean, it's not like just a hop, skip, and a jump, but
I want to say it's 6 hours from me.
Gotcha.
I don't remember.
Yeah, I've never looked at it.
I don't remember getting the feeling it was super close.
I'm back onto some builds though. Do you guys know if Franks would do, like, since he just got a bunch of like packer lasts in and everything, do you know if they would experiment and do a monkey on a packer?
I don't see a reason why they wouldn't. It's just putting a different last around the pattern. I mean, the packer's not like a really like a taller arch or anything. It's just a different shaped toe. Now,
yeah, I was just with that shape of the toe and everything.
I mean, that could be an issue. The shape of the toe could be an issue. That might be one of those things where they have to maybe go up half a size to make sure. That would be. I mean, the number 2 toe's not that much smaller. If it's like a number, if it's a number 1, I could see that being a massive issue.
If you're thinking about a monkey as far as function, I guess I don't think it's going to look right aesthetically.
It's
going to increase the toe box length. I don't think that the vamp area that shows would look very good. The number 2 toes, or even worse, the number 1 toe.
Number 1 toe.
And I was 2 hours off. I'm 4 hours from Wicket and Craig, and I'm closer than John because it's over towards like Cleveland. It's kind of above Pittsburgh, in between Pittsburgh and Harrisburg.
That's 4 hours ain't bad though. It's better than 1,000+ miles. I mean, hell, I think even Milwaukee from me being in the Midwest is like 800 miles.
Milwaukee's tough for me because of the water. I gotta go around the water before I start getting up.
Yeah. But cool. So on that note, your Grail boot, we picked out something in kangaroo or another exotic leather, which we have talked about a little bit. Did mention something about wanting to do something in kangaroo, just hadn't quite nailed it down yet. But you also mentioned that your favorite boot was the Nail Shank 2, which I have recommended creosote to others before, so that's right up my alley.
And if I was to do engineers also, I would probably go that route also, just because that's the main thing that's kept me away from many engineers, is that I know I'm not going to get a proper fit. Like, I have pretty skinny calves and everything, and it's not going to work out well unless I get custom done.
You are not wrong there. I have, Jeff knows this, and I've talked about it a little bit. I have a very love-hate relationship with engineers and how much I hate almost every pair of engineers that I own.
Yeah, I know it's not going to work out unless I go full custom. That creosote's probably going to be where I go for that as well. But, so at the very least, 2 boots from your board, the Nail Shank 2 and the which I'm kind of tossed up in there between the Nail Shank 2 and that motorcycle one he did, the RS1 Dirt.
Yeah. So basically, that is his 1940 motorcycle boot, just in an 8-inch with a nail shank treatment. Is what that boot is.
Yeah.
It's the full nail shank dye treatment with no beeswax at the end to essentially kind of make it look kind of waxed fleshy.
Gotcha. Yeah. No, I just love that the shifter patches and the actual like rid three-dimensional.
Yeah. Those it's meant to model after a road toe flower on a cowboy boot. So on a cowboy boot, they do the P&Ws call them a toe bug. It's toe flower. They do the fancy shape, and then they do rows under it, and they run cord under it to make the ridges, so you can feel the ridges with your fingers. He's essentially recreating that with the shifter patch, just over whichever side, the interior. Well, in his case, he'd call it the medial side of your foot.
I like those a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
definitely don't see people doing that kind of stuff. So
and that's based off his. So he did in his younger years motocross kind of like style stuff of mountain bike riding and things like. Sorry, we call it mountain bike. These days, most people call them dirt bikes because there's an actual mountain bike that people ride on bicycle wise. But kind of doing the old dirt trails and stuff when he was younger. So that's why all the pictures are next to that dirt bike that he has in his shop. Kill switch is kind of the same thing. It's just a 16-inch version that's meant for going, off-roading and kind of adventuring.
Gotcha. I just had a light bulb blue, so I'm gonna be in kind of darkness for the rest of this.
It happens. But I mean, it's interesting too, because like I said, the way Gabbard does everything is a little over the top. Even he'll be the first to admit that it seems like over the years he's increased the amount of steps that need to be done to every piece of leather he touches, from 2 steps to 4 steps to now most of his models need like 8 steps to finish. So
it's badass though.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But no, that's definitely like the upper echelon of where I'm planning on buying and everything. There's quite a few other like cowboy boot makers and stuff like that they make like packers or like lace up models and everything like that I'm kind of also looking at, but I'd have to do more research on a bunch of them and everything.
Yeah, cowboy boot makers it's funny, we talk about like industries that no one thinks exist anymore, and like cowboy boot makers and blacksmiths are those things that everyone's like, oh, that's dead old world stuff. And it's like, man, you can throw a dead cat in any direction in any town and hit a blacksmith or a cowboy boot maker. So,
at least in the Midwest.
Oh, 100% in the Midwest.
That's part of what got me into all this as well, is I was one of those guys that would always, because it was always told to me, there isn't anything made in America anymore, basically, is what was told to me my whole life growing up and everything. And it's like, that definitely wasn't true back then. Not true now. So it's, I don't know.
There's niches to everything and asterisks to everything as well. Yeah, the amount of American brands that are together in Canada or Mexico, the even the stuff that's put together here that's got foreign parts, it's pretty hard. But when you get into smaller like craft type industries, there's definitely some out there, and because they're so small, price tags are high, but they certainly exist.
And that's really the thing. The price tag being high is always the kicker, right? Like when we talk about things not being made in America anymore, it's just they're being made in America. They're just 10 times the price. It's usually that. Like a lot of people think of like furniture, right? There's tons of furniture still made in America. It just all has a $4,000 higher price tag on it. It's just one of the things. Like I said, 'cause a pair of custom cowboy boots will, someone that's still in the beginning of their journey, like Flora, is going to start, like 18 to 2,000. Most of your mid-range makers are going to be four to 10,000, depending on how they orient their list. If you're like Texas Traditions and you're okay with like a 6-year waiting list, those boots tend to run 4,000 to 6,000. If you're someone like Lisa, who's trying to keep the list as short as possible and only met the most serious customers, her starting price is 10,000. And then, a lot of guys are in between there, and depending on how they want to manage their weight versus price, because that's generally what happens is you can manage your weight by cutting your books off when you fulfilled X number of orders, or you can raise the price up enough to only the most serious people are interested in buying.
And there's some lower end cowboy boot, like smaller cowboy boot makers out there and everything still also. Like there's like Beck's boots. They're like, you can get some of them for like $500, and they have a lace up model also that I've been looking at. But I'm pretty sure they're it says Goodyear welted, but it also says pegged, so I don't know.
Well, you can have pegged Goodyear welted. So cowboy boots are done a little differently, right? So you can have anywhere from a 260-degree welt to a 160-degree welt. So if you just Goodyear welted the 160-degree portion and you use staples in it from there, while it's still on the welting machine, you would drive the pegs in right then and there. So you
Gotcha.
could do it that way. It's tough too, because like when we start talking about $500 to $600 American made boots, there's always some asterisks thrown in there, right? Like,
Oh yeah.
At that price point, that barely covers the cost of a ton of the materials they use. So there's always usually somewhere where they're cutting corners to get there, right? Like, for example, let's take the White's Perry, sewn in the Dominican Republic. That's part of the reason they can get the price down $200. So,
And a lot of these smaller brands, I'm sure a lot of their corner cutting and everything isn't even really out in the open or anything, or like known about.
Oh,
So
100%. Yeah. Yeah, it'd just be total speculation, but it's going to be stuff like that, like getting pre-made parts mostly done, only doing the bottoming. It could literally, like I said, at the $400 to $500 price point, I wouldn't be shocked if like almost the entire boot is completed in Leon or Guadalajara and sent here, and just like the finishing touches done is 100% possible.
Yeah, I would have to look into any one of these companies. I would personally want to visit actually, but yeah.
That's, I mean, there was one of them that we were looking at last week, 3 weeks ago. Some guy in, was it Virginia?
No, they're in
sent you a
Pennsylvania.
picture. Sent you a picture of the house where they're made in. It's like a small ranch house at the end of a court.
Yeah. It's one guy. Like he was up at a boot camp apparently. I was gonna go up there, but I had all sorts of stuff happen and everything. But yeah.
Yeah, he was
apparently it's one guy that does all the boots and everything, and that's apparently they're Blake stitched and stitched down.
Yeah. Well, so we call that Rapid Blake.
Yeah.
You're left with one of two things, right? Like, so like for anyone that doesn't know, P&W boots are essentially Rapid Blake is their technical construction. It's just instead of leaving the upper in, it's flared out so that the upper is a part of the stitch down portion of it, and that's done specifically for waterproofness. That's the biggest thing you're getting out of that, is not having area where dirt, debris, and water can seep into, especially as those glues break down over time. So it's a Blake Rapid method. And there's a lot of people who use Blake Rapid. I mean, honestly, probably the toughest work boots are done with Blake Rapid. Most people are going to be shocked to hear that. It's not going to be something they necessarily want to hear, but the toughest boots generally are Blake Rapid. The only constructions that can stand up to it are going to be your super bespoke hand carved constructions. But at the price you're paying, are you going to go actually work in those? For the answer of most people, it's no. You're not going to want to do that. But yeah, that's really kind of where the rubber meets the road. Like Rapid Blake is, or McKay. From people don't know, we've talked about it a couple times, but McKay stitch, Blake stitch, same thing. Blake made the process, McKay made the machine. You realistically have stronger construction types than Blake anything, but they get significantly more expensive, and by significantly we mean multitudes, right? 3-4 times more expensive. And that's kind of where it comes in, especially when we start talking about repairability now, because like when we're talking hand inseam welted stuff, 360 is going to be the strongest construction you can get for a hand inseam welt. But how many people can you find that can work on a hand inseam welted boot that's 360 like that, right? That's number one. And then number two, how expensive is it to get that fixed? When we talk about quote unquote fixing a welt on a Rapid Blake boot, that's a rebuild. We know that those generally run $300. Quite a few companies that do it. None of them seem like they're going out of business anytime soon. But if you need someone to put a new welt on a 360-degree inseam welt, you need someone that's actually smart enough to do it and has the skills to do it. But number two, it's probably a $400 to $500 job. No problem. So, that those are the trade-offs, and that's why your Blake Rapid has become the de facto like tough as nails work boot.
Gotcha.
But he was at Stitch Down. I know the guy you're talking about. I think Dale talked to him. He's doing a video with him here soon.
Okay, gotcha.
So,
yeah, I'm definitely always interested in seeing the new stuff that's coming on and everything, new builders and everything. It's cool. Yeah.
I'm still blown away that you want to buy boots from 20 different tanneries.
Yeah, that list is probably going to get whittled down a little bit because a lot of like the Italian tanneries, it seems like a lot of them do like a very similar things. So it might behoove me to limit that list down. And try and do a little more research on which ones are the best at individual types of tannages that I would like to try from them and everything.
Yeah, so you've got the big four, really, if we're being honest. You got Chloe and Miriam for horse. Chloe does shell, but they also do like their art thing, horse rump, which is real nice. You have Miriam for horse rump and shell. Then you have, obviously, Walpier and Badalassi for your double shoulder stuff. There is a fifth one that's known as Ricardo, which is a popular shell, but they just do shell. You could do two. You could do like a Badalassi and a Miriam, or a Walpier and a Chloe, and really kind of cover all your bases for the most part.
Gotcha.
Walpier and Badalassi do lots of experimentation. They're using different plant fibers and really trying to consistently push their veg tan process, which is why we get such unique, stunning colors out of struck through hides that don't have like weird interior core colors.
Oh, and some of them are not doing everything in-house. Some of them are getting something that's tanned to a certain extent, then they're receiving it, and then they're finishing it off and giving it their own touch.
Yeah, that does happen. It's called white label tanning. The most popular known version of that is Letter Ogawa shell in Japan. They get all that stuff mostly pre-done from Shinki, and they just do the actual like dyeing and finishing stages themselves. Though I hear they've expanded operations over the past couple of years, so they might be doing a lot more in-house than they were. Sorry, go ahead. What were you going to say, John?
Oh, you're fine. I was just going to say, and then I also have like some little obscure tanneries. Like, have you ever heard of Bole or Bole, Bole? They're up in Scandinavia. I want to say Sweden, but they do reindeer.
No,
and,
I don't
they do it
that one.
Cool.
For traditional Sami footwear and every Sami, however you say those names.
Yeah.
Which I think is kind of modern Mokto actually comes more from actually than Native Americans and everything whenever it comes to the actual how the two pieces are married and everything anyway.
Correct. Yeah, there's actually a lot. Everyone thinks Mokto is moccasins, but yeah, there's a lot of tradition. Most of our shoe designs come from traditional European shoe designs. Very, very few are actual native. The only Norwegian tannery I have tried is Tarnjo. I have a couple Tarnjo belts, which is out of Sweden. They do most of the thicker stuff.
I'm talking about that. Yeah, I want to try one of those belts for sure.
But well, I am the guy who tries. Fortunately.
Reindeer sounds awesome. I wonder how different it is than elk or kudu.
It's closer. It's closer to cow. It's a lot closer to cow than those other two. So JFJ Baker does a reproduction Russian calf, or a Russian reindeer that's in a calf that's got very similar temper, and it's also tan. One of the few that they tan in birch oil, so it kind of smells like a wet cigar. It's tanned and finished in birch oil, just like they would do traditionally with reindeer. And its kind of look and feel is very similar to the reindeer and actual cow. So the fact that they can use cow as a substitute for it, and I've what's his name? It's a dude down in Dallas. He's got the YouTube channel that a lot of people like. Kirby Allison. He's got an actual pair in the reindeer from, I can't remember which bespoke maker over there. It's not Dominic Casey. It's the other one that he's got a bunch from. That's the actual shipwrecked stuff that was in the water for 200 years. So he's got a pair that's actually made out of the real Russian reindeer, not just the replica that JFJ Baker's made.
This company, I want to say they tan theirs with a spruce. Do you know if there's any kind of negative things with spruce tanning, like
No.
as far as smell wise and all that
Nope.
kind of stuff?
Sorry, the birch oil, I say it smells like wet scar. It's kind of just what you get. It's not like overpowering or negative or anything. The only stuff I would say to stay away from is anything that's tanned in fish oil, which the JFJ harness is tanned in, and when it gets wet, you will smell it. So,
Gotcha.
But I will
I remember
say,
you guys saying that, Jay, so that's kind of, they have been on my list actually because of that, actually, really. But,
well, they make the best insole, midsole, and heel stack leather, hands down.
yeah. I mean, that's
Yeah. They're
besides
my Franks and the JFJ Bakers are hands down my most comfortable Franks by a fucking mile. It's a shame that leather broke the Rapid E machine multiple times.
Hey, I haven't. I don't feel like I've found the best perfect octo yet, and I'm afraid that it's probably because it doesn't really exist.
right.
It's the Russell Moccasin is extremely well made, and it in some ways it's the closest because it's extremely strongly made, and it's still very tough, and the way that they do the multiple pieces of leather, the way that they put them together, the fact that there is a single wraparound piece beneath that, it all makes it a aesthetically and tough the perfect pair. But because you have that leather wrapped around the inside, that's defeating the purpose of the extra toe room and the oversized toe box that I would want, what I would consider a perfect mock toe, which is not what you see from Alden and from the PMW and from most of the others. So I don't know. I don't know how you'd make one that's tough and has the pronounced boxy toe room at the same time.
I think the single stitch or the single vamp piece with that, it's a flow through machine or whatever it is that does that. I think that's probably the closest thing that's ever going to exist to that you'll be able to get without, like I said, that kind of really flat, narrow walled toe look. Which obviously, if it's got the walled toe look, it's going to have a feel. What's up?
That's another thing I was gonna ask. So it's a completely different piece of machinery for them to do that single piece of mock toe stitch and everything.
Yes.
So like, did Nick's buy their own and Frank's bought their own and all that kind of stuff, or do they like send that off for?
No, they bought the machine. It's sitting at Frank's. They've had it for a while. So it's like, it looks like a post bed machine, but instead of you setting it down on the post and running across the post like this and it going up and down, the post is upside down facing upwards, and it's got this thing, and you push the leather piece up and it punches through this way, and then they just feed the upper piece through till it's done. Across the two parts, you flip it up, there's your mock toe piece, and it's passing through, pulling back around, lock stitching each one through, which is a little different because like when you have like a pair of any that's been done by hand usually, or like the Red Wings, which a lot of people do that Red Wing style, that's actually just done with a regular machine. So if you break a single stitch, the whole apron starts coming apart. It's not lock stitched.
Yeah, for me, some reason, Red Wing and Truman are my favorites for toe shape whenever it comes to mock toe. I love that two piece, just the walled toe coming to the nice crisp edge all the way around.
I agree. I think aesthetically it's the best look. It's just functionally it's not. So I've made peace with the single piece mock.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Oh, me too. I'm
Yeah.
definitely getting some ones, and I've got a Nick Spare, and I'm probably gonna get at least one more Nick Spares probably. But I did have three kind of lined up that I was wanting to have built and everything, but I'm kind of back and forth wishy-washy on like what I really am looking to collect and all that kind of stuff and everything, which is why I'm kind of trying to break it down in a lot of different aspects of different metrics to try and prevent myself from buying.
Any
Then you can just cut it
duplicates?
off right.
Yeah.
Trying to prevent myself from buying.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it makes sense too. Because the other thing is me and Jeff have talked about this in a couple episodes. There's two ways of going about figuring out what you want: tons of research, which will only get you so far, or trying it out. Because a lot of times you don't know until you know. But there's a third method, which is probably the best method of the three, and that is the Jeff method, is what I'll just call it, but that's not the actual name of it. And that is combining research with people that you know, that you value their opinion on. They've had it, how it looks. They can show you what it looks like after so much wear. It's something you can see. They can tell you how it feels, how it breaks in, blah, blah, blah. Because anyone that's done, let's just use arch, for example, right? Anyone that searched, do I need high arch boots? You will not find a straight fucking answer on the internet about that. Ever. And it's impossible, because for most people, you won't know if you like high arch boots until you put them on, try it, and wear them for 100 hours. Very rarely does anyone say, oh my God, I absolutely hate this. It does happen, but very rarely is that usually the case. But you can tell someone till you're blue in the face. You can talk to someone that's done it. You can try to go about the process, but there is never enough information that you can gather to know if you're going to like arch or not. And leathers kind of fall in the same categories. There's only so far research they'll get you. There's only so far that knowing others that have it and can give you a valuable opinion on it can get you. And there'll always be that gaps left, but at least you're 3/4 of the way there versus 1/4 of the way there. And that's kind of the difference. So someone has to be the person that tries. Because let's just take Frank's, for example. Without people buying a bunch of these leathers and sending it in, the Badalassi Pueblo, the Merriam, the Dublin, even the Wicket and Craig's, like, these weren't leathers they were interested in bringing in. People pushed for it, got examples in that they could run prototype boots in. There was enough demand. They've brought that stuff in. So most of the limited edition leathers you see weren't stuff that they picked randomly on the fly. They were stuff that either they've had that leather in from customer provided at some point, or they have had something adjacent close enough to it to know that it would work. All right. So you always need that, person that tries. That's a kind of a key part to the process, because without it, for a lot of stuff, you just don't know till you know. But and once in, just another slice of the pie. Cool. Well, I think we've covered this one pretty well. So,
Right.
as usual, like, comment, subscribe. Let us know what you think down in the comments below. We try to answer all the questions that we can. Generally speaking, unless you're just an asshole, we've usually got a pretty good reply for everybody. And like I said, if it's a good enough one, which I think we've only had 2 that's happened this way, if there's a good enough one, it might become an episode. Never know. So, anyways, thanks for watching, everybody.
All right. Thanks, John. Sancha.